identify Lyric based on her braces, jewelry, the mole pattern on her face with recent photos. And then we let her know that we suspected that the male was Devin Clark. We didn't have a photo available at the time, but we were going based off of a clothing description that was given about the time that he went missing.
And what else happened while the medical examiner was on scene?
We examined the body for injuries, located gunshot wounds. It was extremely hard to tell what was entry and what was exit. So we located those, explained the shell casings and stuff that we had found.
And what were your next steps?
After the medical examiner was to move the bodies and check them for other injuries. Generally, before the medical examiner arrives, we don't touch the bodies, don't move them in any way so that they can see how it was when we found it.
And did you assist with moving them then?
I did.
And can you describe that?
Moving them?
Yes.
So generally, we roll them up and then either lift their shirt, lift their pants legs, stuff like that, look for additional injuries in the back or back of the head, anything like that that was hard to locate.
And after the medical examiner has completed her assessment of the bodies on scene, what happens?
They're loaded up for transport with final passage, and they're sent to the state medical examiner's office in Raleigh at that time.
And why do they go there?
For a full autopsy that's not conducted on scene.
And did you remain on scene after, were you on scene when final passage got there?
Yeah, and I helped load the bodies.
And then what did you do?
I returned to collecting evidence and photographing, generally processing the scene. I usually stop when the medical examiner arrives so I can assist them with doing their job because mine's going to take several hours.
And at the scene off of Buckhorn Road on September 18th of 2022, did you take a number of photographs?
I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Investigator Baldwin, I'm going to show you what I've marked for identification purposes as States Exhibits 2 to 32 and ask you if you recognize these items.
All right. I do.
And what are States Exhibits 2 to 32?
Crime scene photos that I took.
And you took these yourself?
I did.
Did these photographs accurately depict the scene as you observed it on September 18th?
They do.
And would using these photographs help you explain the types and locations of the evidence you found when processing that scene?
They would.
All right, this time I would move to introduce States 2 through 32 as substantive evidence.
Any objections? No objection, Your Honor. All right, States 2 through 32 will be admitted as substantive evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I would ask if the witness could step down in front of the jurors.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You may move Mr. Trapp so you can observe.
So Investigator Baldwin, if it's all right with you, we'll just walk through these one by one and show the jury the image and then have you describe what's depicted in the image.
Okay.
Fair? All right, so this is State's Exhibit number 2. Can you describe for the jurors what we're seeing in State's Exhibit 2?
So I'm actually standing on the access road, taking a picture downhill because it's easier to see all of the items of evidence. The tape that you see is the edge of the crime scene at Buckhorn Road where the access road comes off of. And it shows the placards and the items that were located on the gravel.
And so this photo, is it from the perspective of where you began moving up that access road looking for evidence?
This one, yes, it is. Mhm.
Can everybody see it?
And I'm sorry, where I'm standing is the edge of Buckhorn Road, looking up the access road. Yeah.
I'll show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 3 and ask you what's depicted in State's 3.
So 3, it's very hard to see, but this is the shell casing. It's right in between those two rocks. If you look very closely, this is what I was talking about gravel hiding shell casings and make them difficult to find. That was one of them that we located in the photograph. This is an example of a close-up picture that we take of evidence. The other one was a mid-range picture.
And could you describe what we're seeing in State's Exhibit 4?
Yes, so this is items 2 and 3. It's a shell casing there and a shell casing there, also located in the gravel of access road. And it's also another close-up photo.
I'm sorry.
The juror would like to know if you could ask a question.
No. I appreciate that.
And State's Exhibit 5.
So this is, because of the length of the access road, this is further up, and it shows, again, it's a mid-range shot showing multiple items of evidence and their relationship to each other across the access road.
And so, in reference to State's Exhibit 2, previously published, these items 1, 2, and 3, those are what were included in State's 3 and 4.
Yes, and then I stood behind 1, 2, and 3, or very close to them, so you could see the placard numbers better on that one. And so they could be oriented with each other.
And that's what's in State's Exhibit 5.
That's correct.
And could you describe what's in State's Exhibit 6?
So this is the fourth shell casing we located, also hiding very neatly behind that piece of gravel.
And how about in State's 7?
It's, this one was actually a lot easier to locate. It's lying on top. It's another shell casing laying in the gravel on the access road.
And State's 8?
It's a shell casing. This is on the side of the access road. It's not actually in the gravel, but it's on the clear section between the road and where the really tall grass starts beside it.
exhibit 9?
Shell casing also on the gravel for the access road.
And state's exhibit 10?
States Exhibit 10. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so right here, what you can see on that piece of gravel in that area is red stains on rock, consistent with blood stains, so that's why we collect.
And you collected that entire area of gravel?
I collected anything that was red in that area, and we put it all in one bag.
And then state's 11?
So this is, it's in between the mid-range and a close-up photo. What I was trying to show you was how close 8 and 9 were to each other, being the blood stains on the rock and 9 being more blood on the rock. It's just orienting you to how close they were to each other.
And how about state's 12?
So that would be 9. That would be the blood. So you can actually see it trail up through here on multiple lines. It kind of makes like a wider S pattern up through the picture. Sometimes it appears more brown because when it ages, blood turns from darker color when there's no oxygen in it.
And state's 13?
Also, blood, so there's a placard and there's kind of a different view of the same kind of trailing that goes all the way to the edge.
And how about state's 14?
So this is a view of the blood, the little flag here, the flag I put down for number 8, because it's difficult to get the picture of everything I wanted. But it orients you from 9 through more of the items, 10, 11, and then stuff around the bodies. But it orients you from the blood to where the bodies are located off of the access road.
And what, if anything, did you notice about how that was oriented?
So the shell casings move kind of, there's a couple right up front with that first picture, then the next step, there's several more with beginning of blood, and then off to the right of that, immediately like right off the road, you can see in that picture, is where the bodies are. So in terms of a scene, they're relatively close proximity.
And I'll show states 15 and 16 together. Can you describe what we're seeing here?
Flip-flops that were located in the tall grass. In that last picture where you saw 8 and 9, the 2 placards that were in the tall grass between the bodies and the staining on the gravel were those 2 flip-flops, but they were obscured by grass.
And would you just point out on states 14 where those 2 items are located?
Yeah, again, so there's our blood staining. This is item 10, that was the first flip-flop, and the second one, you can see the top of the placard there. That's the second flip-flop. We marked it as number 11. But again, they're obscured by grass from that angle, so we get closer pictures.
And states exhibit 17?
So around the body was another shell casing located in the grass. Those placards were down in the other picture, but you can't see them because of the grade of the hill and the height of the grass blocking the placards.
And State's Exhibit 18.
Another shell casing. You can see it's relatively close to the last one. So it's the corner of the placard. There it is, again, in the tall grass. These are over by the bodies. These are not in the road.
And then State's Exhibit 19.
19 is difficult to see. There's a better picture in there.
Let me hold up State's 20 as well.
Okay. So this is the same thing. This is a good picture of the placard, but you can't really see the shell casing. So we had to zoom in and blind the placard, but there's your shell casing deep down in the grass. Again, these are all above the head of the bodies. So you have the access road, you have where the shoes are, you have the bodies, then the tall grass behind the bodies. This is where these shell casings are.
And State's 21.
This is marking shell casings on board those examples. And this is, all you can really see is the placards because of the tall grass. Like I said, we keep having to zoom in really close.
And, sorry,
Okay.
reference the positioning of these placards. Where were the bodies?
So, again, if these are the placards, if you turn it flat, if these are where the shell casings are laying, the bodies are here. So it would be above their heads. So the access road is, say, this is your access road right here that we photographed up. You have the flip-flops, the bodies, and then you have the shell casings right here. And they're relatively close to the bodies. Most handguns eject 6 to 8 feet in shell casings. Until they come into contact with something like tall grass can shorten it. A number of factors will change it, but an average, a good average is 6 feet.
And we saw in State 21 placard number 20 as well. And what is that item?
That's one of the zoomed in on the shell casings again. And it should be noted, while collecting these shell casings and photographs, one thing we did note that they're all 9mm shell casings. So they're all the same caliber.
I'll try to get there just ahead of me.
Okay.
How about in States 23?
That is just showing placards 17 and 21, and actually the wheel tape that I used to measure distance that I was telling you about. That's just showing their location next to Buckhorn Road at the very bottom of the access road as you're turning on.
And do you recall what those items were?
I want to say it was it would have been a vape pen and a cigarette butt, or a broken chip clip.
And based on your assessment of the scene, did you think those two items had any evidentiary value?
I did not. There's a difference in evidence and trash that you find at a crime scene, especially along a busy road. These are determined to be trash. On the side of the road, right down the road, anybody puts cigarette butts out.
And how about in States 24?
So right here at the bottom of it, you see the blood stain on the rocks again. I'm sorry, the red stain on the rocks. We assume it's blood. That's why we collect it.
And what do we see in States Exhibit 25? I'm going to ask you to come this way because these photos are a little bit graphic.
Okay. So what we're focusing here now is from the flip-flops and starting to orient all the evidence to the bodies. So here you see the body of Devin that had not yet been identified, and a body of lyric that had been identified. This is prior to the medical examiner arriving and us rolling them and looking for injuries.
And what was marked by placards 15 and 16?
I don't have to look. Showcasing's probably. Yeah, I would have to look at the list.
And now looking at States Exhibit 26.
So this is weird. This is the condition that we found her. When I was talking about the obvious decay, you see right around here, you see that it's starting to change color. And then you see the obvious marks on her neck there.
And what did you believe those marks to be?
Gunshot wounds. Based on what we found at the scene. That's also how we identified her with the jewelry and the mole patterns.
And States 27.
So this is, like I talked about, once the medical examiner arrives, we move clothing to determine if there's any injuries that we did not see. Because she's wearing a black shirt, it wasn't immediately apparent there were injuries, but when we lifted her shirt with the assistance of the medical examiner, you can see there's more injuries.
And how about States 28?
This is a different angle of Lyric's body, and like I said, that's a better angle to see those wounds on her neck, which we thought at the time were gunshot wounds.
And States 29.
So this is just documenting really, I apologize for that, documenting really her body position. You see her arms out straight, and that one's kind of bent at an angle, and then you've got her leg open. And as you can see, 15 here is one of her shoes, which means 16 in the other picture, I could not recall would have been the other one of her shoes. And just kind of the general way her body was positioned and how it's related to Devin. As you can see his arm from the picture.
And I want to ask you about this area right here, sort of in between where the two were laid. Did you do any collection or testing on that area?
We did not test that. That was an area determined by us, or assumed by us, to be a large pool of blood. Given its relation to the bodies, we did not swab it and collect it.
And next, States Exhibit 30.
So this is a picture of Devin. This is his face in the condition that we found him. You can see swelling that occurs and the color changing, same as Lyric. So it's been there about the same amount of time. And we took this so that we could compare it when we got a good photo of Devin, so we could compare it, try to identify it.
And how about States 31?
So in this one, this was just a general positioning of Devin with his arm outstretched and that one kind of curled up and both of his legs straight. One thing we did note was the position of his pants. They're lower than normal, but his underwear is still in place.
in violating State's Exhibit 32.
So this is the position of the bodies related to each other, and you can see just how close they are. And then the positioning of the shell casings to Lyric's head, and then the flip-flop and the other flip-flop, which appears to be under his plate.
And similarly to the spot I pointed out previously, I wanted to ask you about this area of staining next to her right foot.
So we did not swab that either. That is, it was a large red stain consistent with a pool of blood right up next to the bodies. We made the assumption that that's where it came from. It leaked from the bodies after they were placed there.
Thank you. After you, well, let me ask you first, were those all the photographs you made on scene that day?
I don't believe those are all of them. Some of them don't come out as good. You know, if your focus isn't right, the lighting isn't right. I'm not sure if that was all of them or not.
And once you were finished taking the photographs of all those images, did you begin collecting items?
We did.
And do you generally go in any sort of order?
I try to collect them in the number of the placards, and the only reason that I really do that is because placards are expensive, and if I collect them in the right order, I can stack them on top of each other and know that I've gotten all my numbers. So if I show up with 40 placards and I collect them in the right order, if I'm missing one, I missed an item out there somewhere, I need to go find it.
And did you collect them in that way on this scene?
I did.
Just kidding. May I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, give me the other two as well. And Investigator Baldwin, I'll show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 33
Okay.
and ask you if you recognize this item.
I do. It's the shell casing, one of the 9mm shell casings. It's the one marked number 1 in the photos.
And how do you recognize that that's what that item is?
Because on the front of the packaging, I fill out the same way. I put the item number, and I try to make the item numbers match the placards in the photo to make things easier. And then I wrote on there exactly what it is. It's one brass-colored RP brand, 9mm Luger shell casing, and it says where it's from, and the coordinates on it match what's in my report on where I measured number 1.
And do you label all the pieces of evidence you collect in that same way?
I do.
I will show you what's been marked for identification as States 34 and ask if you recognize that.
Item 2.
Sorry, give me a little more than that.
Okay, yeah, sorry. It's a 9mm shell casing that's marked item 2 that was collected from the access road.
And what brand was it?
It's also RP 9mm.
Okay. And how about States 35?
It's item 3. It's the same thing. It's a brass RP brand 9mm shell casing from the access road.
And States 36?
It's the same thing. It's item 4. It's a brass RP brand 9mm shell casing from the access road with the coordinates listed.
And how about 37?
It's the same thing. It's a brass 9mm RP brand shell casing from the access road and the measurements on there.
And States 38?
38 is a Winchester brand 9mm shell casing. So it's the same caliber, it's just a different maker. And it come from the right side of the access road, and the measurements are on there.
And
And, I'm sorry, is that number 6?
It's item number 6 is State's Exhibit number 38, but yeah, it's item number 6.
And how about State's Exhibit 39?
This is item 7, and it's a brass Winchester 9mm shell casing from the access road, and the measurements are on there.
And how about State's Exhibit 40?
So 40 is item 8 in the placards. It's the rocks with the red stains. We collect the entire rock and send it in for testing instead of just swabbing it.
And State's Exhibit 41?
This would be item 9 that we collected, and it's also rocks with red stains, and it came from where the placard was. The measurements are on there.
And how about State's 42?
This is going to be item 12. It's a brass RP brand 9mm shell casing, and it's from the access road by the victim's head, and the measurements are on there.
How about State's 43?
It's item 13. It's a brass RP brand 9mm shell casing, and it is from above Lyric's head off the access road. The measurements are on there.
State's 44?
Brass RP brand 9mm shell casing from above Lyric's head, and the measurements are on there.
State's 45?
This is 18. This is the rocks with the red stains that we showed you where placard 18 was.
And State's 46?
It is a brass RP brand 9mm shell casing, and this one was also above Lyric's head off the side of the access road. The measurements are on the package.
Thanks. Now, there's a bunch of writing on the back of these envelopes, and I'll use State's 46 as an example. Can you hold that up and describe what the different areas of writing are on there?
Yeah, so up here is the seal. When I put it in here, this just folds like a manila envelope. This is paper tape. I put paper tape on there, and I sign the edge of it so I can tell if anybody has opened this behind me to make sure it's the same item. Down here, what you have is a crime lab sticker where it was sent to the crime lab to be tested, and that's how they track it. This sticker is how I track it in our system. That sticker is how they track it in their system, and that's where they signed for it, saying that they received it on that day and time, and it was received by AH in evidence intake. Then you have on the side here where it was sent to testing, and it was tested on 9/19 of 22 by BAR, and they would know who that is. It's the lab technician that tested it. And they cut it, and then they taped it shut, and they sealed it with regular packing tape, which you can do, but they signed half on and half off so that you can tell if it's been tampered with. And then on the bottom edge here, it was sent back to the crime lab a second time for additional testing, and it was tested on 12/18/25, and it was opened and resealed by MLS there.
And in your years of experience, this is typically how you receive packaging back from the state crime lab?
That's exactly how we received it.
Your Honor, this time I would move States 33 through 46 into evidence.
Any objection? Yes, sir. Told you earlier, I like to make sure y'all get your steps in any given day. We have one of those issues, just those legal issues that we kind of need to talk about outside your presence just for a couple minutes. So Please remember my instructions. Everybody leave your notepads in your chair. Everybody else, please remain seated. At this time, I'm just going to ask the jurors to step back to the jury designated room. All right, we have gotten our jurors outside the courtroom at this time. When Mr. Trapp came up, he was expressing some concerns about the introduction of the evidence. It was getting a little complicated, so I suggested we send the jury out. Mr. Trapp, would you put your objection on the record?
Absolutely, Your Honor, and I didn't formally object before the jury walked out, but we did approach, and I, after hearing Investigator Baldwin talk about the details on this envelope, it made it clear that at some time he had control of this and he wrote down what was in it and where it was located, but then he mentioned that other individuals had then had access to the contents of this envelope. One was in 2022 and one was as recent as December of 2025. And so my statement or my question was, since he was not the last one to kind of handle and open the items and contents therein, he can obviously identify this envelope because his information is on there, but the contents, I believe, based on chain of custody, might be better suited for the last person to test or analyze these items to confirm this was the item that I got from either the Orange County Evidence Department or got from another expert, and then we in turn sent it back to Orange County versus us saying that because this is a brass item, this is what I found 4 years ago in September. That's where I was going and trying not to be too complicated with it. I'm sorry, Judge.
You don't need to apologize at all, Mr. Trapp. You're working hard on behalf of your client. What I had indicated is that if you chose to object to the admissibility of this evidence based on chain of custody, that you certainly can do that. That will probably require the state to add some additional witnesses to their witness list from the state crime lab to authenticate each and every person on that particular piece of evidence, since it's typical that there are very few objections when we're dealing with the state crime lab, but you have the right on behalf of your client to object to their admissibility until the chain of custody has been completely established. And is that what you're doing at this time?
I'm going to confer with my client beforehand, but that's what we were just discussing, so one moment,
Yeah,
Judge.
go ahead and take a moment to talk to your client.
If I may, I want to make sure I talked with Mr. Ross to make sure he understood what we were discussing and what the implications were for both admitting it now versus having other individuals confirm they did do a test on this date and a test on that date. After conferring with him, we will allow the introduction and not have to bring in 2 or 3 other individuals in order to introduce. But I just want to make sure that a red flag came off in my head. I didn't want to do anything until I got his understanding.
No, Mr. Trapp, like I said, that is completely required. As you know, trial strategy about that, I will make it clear that no testimony will be allowed in about any tests that were done or any results of those tests until there's a witness who can sponsor that information. So the only thing strategically you're making a decision to waive is just having everybody in that chain of custody have to testify from the state crime lab.
That's correct. And at this point, I believe the state's desire would be for Investigator Baldwin just to say, yes, these are the items that I found back on September 18th, 2022, and leave it at that.
Yeah, so we'd be admitting the physical pieces of evidence. That's all we'd be doing, not admitting any other information about them in terms of any tests or any conclusions that were reached in regard to them. Merely the actual physical items and where they were located, and the fact that outside of the state lab, the testimony so far is it has remained in the Orange County Sheriff's Department's custody during that time.
Got that. Okay. Yes, Judge, we understand. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Trapper, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I appreciate Mr. Ross and you conferring to make sure everybody understands where we're at. So with the defendant's agreement, we'll go ahead, note that they've discussed that chain of custody, are agreeing to not require or object to not having every individual who's opened those particular items into custody. Are there any other objections to the admissibility of states 33 through 46, Mr. Trapp?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, when the jury comes back in, unless there's objection, I'll just admit the evidence.
Yes, and I missed it. Just to make it clear, I do expect to call experts who performed additional testing on this and admit their full report, which includes the full chain of custody from the state crime lab, which I think satisfies the chain of custody requirement.
Yes, we would have had to address that if Mr. Trapp had wanted on behalf of Mr. Ross to continue that objection. I believe all of that information, am I correct, has already been turned over as part of discovery.
That's correct.
Yeah, so this is not new information for Mr. Trapp or Mr. Ross, that all those reports contained who at the state crime labs touched them. And my understanding is the only other entity other than the Orange County Sheriff's Department who's had that evidence is the state crime lab.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, that sounds good. Anything else either party wants to put on the record regarding this?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp. All right, let's go ahead and have our folks come back, please. All right, we've got all of our folks back with us. At this time, I will be meeting States Exhibits number 33 through 46.
Thank you, Your Honor. Investigator Baldwin, once these items were collected by you, what did you do with them?
So I take them back to the office and submit them to property and evidence, and then establish a time to take them to the crime lab to be tested for whatever test that we're requesting.
And how does that process work?
Requesting the appointment. So you have to make an appointment. At that time, you just called them on the phone. They've gotten technical now. You have to book an appointment online. But you used to call them on the phone, say, hey, I've got evidence, and I can bring it down Thursday, just like making an appointment with your doctor. They'll be like, 8:30, come on down. So we'll make an appointment, bring it down there, and then I turn it over to them. They sign it to us, or we sign it to them. They print out a receipt. They take it to their storage, and their people test it. And then we go back. They sign it back over to us. We sign it back in, and then we store it in evidence until today.
And are there restrictions on the types or number of evidence that you can bring to the state crime lab?
Yes, and in homicide cases, your first submission can contain 10 items for any specific discipline. Disciplines are broken up in biology, so DNA, that sort of stuff, firearms, so any examination of the shell casing to determine if it's been related to any other crimes or if it came from the same weapon, what caliber it is, all that sort of stuff. Trace does hair and fiber, so you can do 10 items per discipline the first time on a homicide, and then 5 every submission after that. But you have to wait for all of them to come back before you can resubmit more.
And were there a number of items in this case that were taken to the state crime lab?
There were a large number of items that were taken.
Investigator Baldwin, did you perform any gunshot residue testing on the 2 victims in this case?
I did not.
And why not?
Normally, that's done at the medical examiner's office at the request of the investigating officer. The reason we did not in this case is because GSR is short for gunshot residue. Normally only stays on the skin for up to 4 hours. Outside 4 hours, they don't recommend testing. That's usually because people are putting their hands in their pockets, washing their hands, that sort of stuff. In this case, because of the length of time they had been outside and the weather conditions, it would have degraded so much that we would not have been able to get it. So we opted not to spend the resources to do gunshot residue testing because of the length of time they had been out and the amount of decay that we saw, and the dew falling in the morning, the elements.
Investigator Baldwin, I want to turn your attention to the following day, Monday, September 19th. On that day, were you asked to process a vehicle in connection with this case?
I was.
And what kind of vehicle was that?
It was a white 2017 GMC sedan.
And
I'm sorry, like a crossover, not a sedan.
what, if any, information did you have about this vehicle's relevance to the investigation when you were asked to process it?
So I was told it may have been related to the crime. It may have been either a vehicle that the victims arrived in or the suspect arrived in, or both. But it had most likely been at the scene.
And can you describe what actions you took in relation to that vehicle?
So because it was a vehicle, we towed it to the secure lot, actually at the jail over on 70 now, and processed it in the Sally Port. So I have to wait for a search warrant because there's no exigent circumstances there. We waited for the search warrant to arrive. I waited for it to be served by the investigator. And then I started my processing, just like at the crime scene, except this time we didn't use a scanner because a scanner doesn't work well inside a vehicle. So we stuck with just regular photographs. And then in this case on a vehicle, we didn't take measurements because all items are contained on or in the vehicle. And so we can locate it better by describing where it is with photographs and in relation to different items on the car, like the wheel well, the front fender, that sort of stuff, instead of taking measurements.
And so you stood by and waited for a search warrant.
I did.
And then what happened once the vehicle arrived?
So the vehicle arrived, the search warrant was served, and then we started by taking exterior photographs of the vehicle, and then we took interior photographs before we started the actual processing for evidence. We try to document it as it was when we received it.
And when you start processing a vehicle for evidence, can you describe the steps that you take?
Yeah, so I generally, I take my overall photographs to establish it, and while I'm doing that, I'm looking for things that are interesting about the vehicle. In a case like this, I would be looking for red staining because we found blood on the rocks. I'm assuming there should probably be blood around the car. Any hair fiber that would be consistent with our victims, any clothing item, a wallet, an ID, anything that stands out that you say, hey, that would be consistent with the case that we're looking at now. That's generally how I start. And then after that, after photographing, I start collecting those items, generally from the outside in, because the inside's protected with the doors closed. The outside is not. So I start with those since they're at risk first.
So if there are physical items such as a wallet, you would collect that?
Yeah, we'll collect those. They stand out. They're easy to collect.
And then is there other type of evidence you're looking for on a vehicle as well?
DNA is big, especially nowadays. DNA, fingerprints, inside and outside. And then any kind of, like I said, physical evidence that we see, clothing, those sort of things.
And in relation to your processing of this vehicle, what specific steps did you take?
We did a lot of swabs of things that we considered important. Red staining on the outside of the vehicle that we noticed, we took DNA swabs of those. And then inside the vehicle, we took swabs of several areas that were interesting that looked like they could be red or brown, older stains. And then we tested this specific vehicle with luminol.
I'll get to the luminol in a minute.
Okay.
Your Honor, if I could have just a moment to grab my evidence items.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Investigator Baldwin, I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibits 47 through 55, and ask you if you recognize these.
I do. These are the photographs I took at the time we served the search warrant.
And do they accurately depict what you observed on September 19th when you were serving the search warrant on this vehicle?
They do.
Your Honor, at this time I would move States 47 through 55 as substantive evidence.
Any objection? No objection. All right, states 47 through 55 will be admitted as substantive evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Investigator Baldwin, when you start collecting swabs. Can you describe for the jury how you keep track of what it is you're collecting?
Yeah, so initially, before we collect it, remember how we put down evidence placards in the crime scene? We do the same thing in the terrain. It's actually a GMC terrain. I saw it in the photo. We put stickers on there with numbers on it. So say there's a blood swab or a red stain like right here in this area, I put my sticker here or maybe up here close to it so that I can photograph it. And then when I collect it, I'll note which, in the photograph, which came from where. And I try to use fingerprints, I try to use a letter so that it doesn't get confused with blood swabs. So I use number stickers for blood, and I try to use letter stickers for fingerprints.
And, Your Honor, if the witness could step down from the witness stand, and if we may publish these to the jury.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Trapp, you can go ahead and move.
And so Investigator Baldwin, Vanna White, again, I'll show you what's, it states Exhibit 47, if you'll describe for the jury what we're seeing here.
So what we're looking at here is just a view of the entire side of the vehicle. It was tight space in the Sally Port, but that captures the vehicle that we were processing. The 2017 GMC Terrain.
And how about in States 48?
So that is a picture of damage to the vehicle. We took that picture because we didn't know at the time where the damage came from. It could be important later, so we photographed it.
And where on the vehicle was that damage located?
That is the rear, it looks like the right rear bumper, because I believe that's the license plate over there on the left. I'm sorry, I'm incorrect. That's the front license plate. It is on the front right of the car, right there.
And so you're showing that in States 47.
Yes.
Just want to make sure everybody in the jury can see that.
Yep, I'm gonna walk with those.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's the front right of the car.
And then can you describe what we're seeing in States 49?
So in 49, we're trying to capture the red stains that we saw on the car. This is before we put the stickers down on there to mark them. And the reflective surface is making it difficult, but you can kind of see in there the red that we're trying to photograph.
In States Exhibit 50?
Almost the same photo, but this time we put our stickers down. So it lets us locate where we're trying to, or draw your eye to where we're trying to photograph, and we'll later collect.
And how about States Exhibit 51?
So this is looking from inside the passenger door, and we're noting red stains that we intend to collect. This is more because it's so dark. You can see it there in person, but it's extremely difficult to photograph. So the stickers are just documenting where these swabs were collected on the center console. It's specifically on the passenger side. All right, this is a close-in shot. I was trying to capture something I intended to collect. It would have been on an interior panel. I can't tell from that picture which panel it would have been. It would have been the lower edge of the center console. So in that other picture, it should be the one at the very bottom. No, I'm sorry. This is the driver's side of the console. So from the other side of the console, on the very bottom. And that's just a sticker showing you where I intended to collect it from.
And how about in States 53?
So this is a red streak from one of the wheels that we located, and we marked it number 11 because we're going to collect it.
And what about States 54?
So 54, that is a sticker indicating where we were trying to lift a print. And because you can see that's an in there, and then two more spots where we intended to swab, and then a side view of how they're oriented on the outside of the car. The passengers' front and rear doors.
Did you say that's an N there or an end there?
In for north. Yeah. Yeah, our stickers come with directions, north, south, east, and west. So we have to do that.
And you can have a seat. I'll ask you about that in a minute. So, Investigator Baldwin, each of those places that you just described had a sticker number. Did you collect swabs from those areas?
I did.
Approach the witness.
May.
Investigator Baldwin, I'll show you what I've marked as States Exhibit 56 and ask you if you recognize this item.
I do. It's a swab from the right front fender of the terrain over the middle of the tire.
Did you collect all the swabs yourself?
Yes.
And how about States, did you have a sticker number on there?
I don't on here. It should be documented in my report, I believe.
And would having a copy of your report help you remember which sticker number goes with which item?
Yeah, it would. Either that or the pictures. So that's sticker 1.
What number did I say it was through? I'll mark his report as States Exhibit 73 for identification purposes.
Not seeking to admit that, though.
No, Your Honor. Just for identification. You just stick that on the back.
Yeah.
It's number 70.
73.
Got it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is number 1.
Sticker number 1.
Yeah, on the vehicle.
Excellent. And I'll show you States 57 and ask you if you recognize that.
I do. It's another DNA swab from the right front fender. This is over the back edge of the wheel well, and it's sticker number 2 on the pictures.
And how about States 58?
It's from the right front fender over the back edge of the tire on the GMC Terrain, and it was sticker number 3 in the photos.
How about States 59?
It's from the right front fender closest to the front door of the Terrain, and it was in the photos sticker number 4.
And how about States 60?
It's from the top edge of the center console in the photos from the passenger side, the one near the cup holder and the water bottle, and it is sticker number 5.
And how about number 61?
This is from the cutout in the center console under the dashboard, and it is sticker number 6 from the photos.
How about States 62?
It's from the lower portion of the very bottom one on the right center console near the floor. On the passenger side, it is sticker 7.
How about States 63?
This is that really zoomed in one that was from the driver's side, the left center console, and this is sticker number 8.
And what about States Exhibit 64?
This one is from the right rim. This is the right front rim. This is that red streak on the tires that you saw. This is swab from that, and it is sticker number 11.
And how about States Exhibit 65?
All right, this is the inside door pocket from the right rear passenger door. We took a swab from that door pocket, and that was sticker number 12.
How about States Exhibit 66?
It's from the bottom back portion of the rear passenger door of the Terrain, and that was sticker number 13.
And let me back up to 12 for 1 second. Was that sticker number in any of the photographs that you took?
No, I'm sorry. Number 12 was not, it was missed when we were taking photographs. We photographed the car, put the stickers out, rephotographed it, and we missed number 12. That's why I pick up my placards in that order, so that doesn't happen.
But number 13 was in the photos?
Number 13 was on the exterior door photos when they were both open.
And how about States Exhibit 67?
It's also from the right rear passenger door, just below the handle. And that was sticker number 14 in the pictures.
And how about States 68?
All right, this is the inside handle of the front passenger door. And that one does not appear in the photographs. Yeah. The door handles probably won't because I labeled them door handles.
How about 69?
It's the rear passenger interior door handle.
And States Exhibit 70?
70 is the rear driver door handle. The interior, these are all interior.
And States 71?
This is the driver door handle.
And how about States 72?
72 is the window frame of the front passenger door of the white GMC Terrain.
And was that labeled in the photographs?
It was marked with N. It was originally a fingerprint, and then we tried to swab it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
You mentioned just now that some of those swabs came from the interior door handles of the vehicle.
That's correct.
And may I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you States Exhibit 55 that's already been marked and entered. Would you just point out which area of the door handle you're talking about when you say the interior door handle?
Yeah, so if you look right up here, in most modern cars now, you've got a little handle that you grab and you pull out. When we swab the top and the back side of that because that's where you come into contact with it when you pull it to open it. So any of our interior door handle swabs were swabbed the same way, and it came from that location.
Investigator Baldwin, once you collected those swabs, what did you do?
So after the swabs were collected, and I call it processing, filled out, sealed, all that sort of stuff, we tested the vehicle with luminol.
And maybe I should back up briefly. So can you describe for the jury, like, how you do a DNA swab?
Yeah, okay. So DNA, it only takes 60 epithelial scales thereabout to make an identification. So what we do is we take cotton swab, like you get at the doctor, or like they used to do for the COVID test. I'm sure we all had fun with those. They come in the pack, you open them up, you put on gloves first. Again, everything you do and evidence you have on gloves. Put on gloves, open your pack. You have a small 1 ounce jar of distilled water. You put 2 drops of distilled water on one swab and you leave the other one dry. The dry one picks up wet stuff, the wet one picks up dry stuff. So they help each other. You take the swab and you rub it. Say I was trying to get DNA from there. You rub the tip of the cotton swab all over the area you're trying to collect it from. You cover the top, the sides, all of it. You spin them, rotate them. And then when you're done, you put it in a box. It's like a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch box, about 8 to 9 inches long, and then it goes inside an envelope. Once you do that, you fill out the envelope, close it up, then you change gloves before you take a new swab, because if I handled something, I don't want that DNA to be on the swab. The chances are extremely low because you never touch the cotton end. You only touch the wooden handle, but you still change gloves every time.
And is that the same procedure you followed in collecting the swabs that are in front of you?
It is.
And once they were collected, what did you do?
Then we processed, after we stored them, I stored them in a vehicle. I have a lockbox in a vehicle I store them in, and then we processed the interior of the vehicle with luminol.
And what is luminol?
It's a chemiluminescent substance that you spray. It comes in a spray bottle, and you put 3 tablets in it, and you gently mix it. You don't shake it very hard, don't turn it upside down. You gently mix it and give it a couple of minutes to dilute. And then when you spray it, it reacts with the iron in the hemoglobin in the blood and causes it to glow blue, a very bright blue. Like we all had glow sticks as a kid. Remember the blue glow stick that had that really blue electric glow? It glows like that.
And are you trained in the use of luminol?
So there's no specific certification. I did, in my basic and advanced crime scene, we did cover luminol, and I have performed it successfully in prior cases.
And what is the benefit to using luminol?
So luminol detects blood, or detects things that could be blood that may not be visible. Like I said, it reacts to the iron, and especially inside vehicles, in cloth, on plastic, stuff like that that's very dark, like this vehicle. It illuminates it bright blue and allows us to see it, know that that's something that we need to collect, or determine that it's not something that we need to collect.
And did you do the luminol testing after you did the DNA swabbing?
We did. We did the swabbing on the stuff that we could initially see in the vehicle, because there's no need to luminol that. We see it, we know it's there, we collect that first. Then we process it with luminol to see if there's anything that we missed.
And can you describe, did you use luminol on the vehicle in this case?
We did. We had to create a dark environment because it works best in low light, and then we process it with luminol.
How did you create a dark environment?
So lights were a problem because we're in the city, so we put it under a tarp. And we went under the tarp inside the vehicle and then processed it with luminol.
And where was the vehicle itself located when you did this?
So we drove it behind the jail back toward the loading docks was the darkest spot at that time because the moon was bright. Behind the building got us the furthest away we could get from street lights. And then adding the tarp got it dark enough for us to process it to be able to see it very well.
And you mentioned the moon, so were you doing this at nighttime?
We were doing it at nighttime, yeah. At dark. It was after dark.
And can you describe what process you follow when testing a vehicle with luminol?
So, well, to move it, first of all, I didn't want to contaminate it. It was brought there on a tow truck. We had to move it. So I had to put on a Tyvek suit, those plastic, like radiation-looking suits, and boot covers and gloves, and drive it down there. And then it's like 200-300 yards. Drive it down there. Then once it's mixed up, luminol's ready to go, we spray each surface of the vehicle. And we only do a small portion at a time. And the reason that we do a small portion at a time is it doesn't last very long. The glow only lasts about 30 seconds, sometimes 45 at a minute. It's very hard to see. But you spray it in very small sections, and you don't spray a lot because you don't want it to run. If you run, you start moving evidence. So you don't want it to run.
And do you start with a particular part of the vehicle?
Generally, I do the exterior first. I always process outside to inside, if at all possible.
And is that how you did it in this case?
I believe it is, yeah.
Can you describe what you observed when using the luminol on this vehicle?
So when using the luminol on this vehicle, there are several areas that lit up. You spray it, over the fender or places like that. If there's spots that we missed, it lights up blue. I know in this one, inside the vehicle, there was a very large spot on the roof, on the interior roof, that glowed very bright blue.
And were other investigators with you when you were doing this?
I believe at the time Sergeant Hendricks was there and trying to assist me with photographs. Like I said, I'm spraying it, trying not to make sure it runs. I need help with photographs. So I had the sergeant at the time try to assist me with photographs of luminol.
And were there areas that reacted with the luminol on the exterior of the vehicle?
There were a few, yeah.
And were there areas on the interior of the vehicle, other than what you mentioned in the roof, that reacted with the luminol?
Interior, I don't recall. I recall the roof the most, but I don't recall that.
And can you describe in a little more detail what you observed on that interior roof?
So in that vehicle, there's a dome light. Most cars have them, and it's got the buttons you use to cut it on and off. So when we sprayed the roof as we were coming by, they looked like a handprint. You could see a thumb and 4 fingers, and it looked like very long drag marks for the fingers up until the palm made contact, and there was a little bit of drag on the palm. Kind of like you missed your dome light. You reached back to hit it, you missed it, and then came forward to find it. It's kind of what it looked like on the roof.
When you were observing that vehicle with the naked eye, did you see anything there?
It was not visible with the naked eye, no.
Are there other substances that can react with luminol?
Yeah, like I said, luminol reacts with the iron and the hemoglobin in the blood to give you that glow. Unfortunately, other substances will react with them, namely a lot of cleaners will react with them. And generally, if they're reacting with something other than blood, they'll be dimmer or have a more white look to it. But they do react with other items.
What type of cleaners might it react with?
Clorox. A lot of household cleaners. Generally, if it's been cleaned, you'll see a cleaning pattern.
What does that mean?
Well, like say you wipe down your counter like that, you know, you're cleaning it off, spray your rag, wait down the counter. Well, if we spray it with luminol and it's a substance that will react, you'll see the streaks where the towel drug the substance across the surface.
And have you seen those type of marks before?
I have.
Can you compare how those marks look to the what you observed on the interior roof liner of the car?
So the interior roof liner glowed bright blue, first of all. It wasn't as dull or whitish, and it did not have the cleaning pattern that you would expect from a rag or a cleaning surface. It very clearly looked like a hand with drag mark fingers. And I don't think we were able to get an accurate photograph of it in time.
And did you take any further steps related to that dome light area after the luminol?
Yeah, so because it's cloth, swabbing it's very hard. So like we did with the rocks, we just took the entire item. So when it glowed blue, we figured this is the section that it glowed blue, so we cut a section out of the roof liner and took the entire item to be tested instead of trying to swab it and get those cells.
If I could have one moment, Your Honor. May I approach the witness?
You may.
Investigator Baldwin, I'll show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 74 for identification purposes and ask you if you recognize this item.
Yeah, this is the area that I cut out around the dome light from the roof of the GMC.
And after you cut it out, what did you do with it?
I packaged it up and then took it to the crime lab for testing.
Or I don't think I did earlier, but at this time, I would move States 56 through 72 and 74 into evidence.
All right, first, any objections to states 56 to 72? Those are the swabs taken of the vehicle. All right, states 56 through 72 will be admitted. And as to states exhibit number 74, which is the lining of the roof from the vehicle, any objection? No objection. All right, state 74 then will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Are we at a good stopping point?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, even while y'all are in court, my wonderful, fabulous court reporter has to keep writing everything down, so we need to give her a break. So what I'm going to do is please remember all of your instructions. Please leave your notepads in your chairs. We'll have everybody else remain seated. We're going to take our afternoon recess for 15 minutes. Thank you. All right, all the members of the jury are outside the courtroom at this time. Anything else we need to address on behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor.
On behalf of the defense?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, we'll be in recess for 15 minutes, please. I'm not sure. You're telling me this is not like a public defender, you go by the hourly rate. I'll check with Jamie and see what she says. Although I can't call Jamie right now. Yeah. Yeah. I see how it works. I knew in Haswell, they had to turn these over in flat fees. Like, for an H-class level, they were able to pay $3,000, whether you did 1 hour or 40 hours. I don't know. The only thing you say to me is, you're submitting an hourly billing that you expect to be reimbursed for, that has to be signed by the judge. And that's when you need to itemize this. Yeah. If he's only gonna make $3,000, they don't care what he did, or what his hours, how many hours he spent. But when I ask that, that number matters.
Give me my numbers.
Yeah, I'm with Verizon, and Verizon's down. So, I don't have. Yeah, I can only, they want me to use the satellite. Yeah. Verizon's down. Yeah, I was just saying, they want me to use the satellite.
Walked away from the building at lunch to get my sandwich. Too far away to get dinner.
Yeah. About the what? All right, I'll be back.
Paige, do you have a binder clip?
Oh, wait a minute, I got a baby.
A binder clip?
We got a baby.
That's true.
Judge. I know for a brief moment I got service and I started getting messaging that they could hear whispering in the live stream. So I'm going to make sure I turn my microphone off so that unnecessary feedback doesn't go through that. Other than that, no.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and bring our jurors back in. All right, we've got everybody back with us from the break. Madam DA, witnesses with you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Investigator Baldwin, when you finished processing the GMC terrain, what did you do with it?
It was taken back to the impound lot.
And how did that process work?
The same way as I moved it. I had to put on Tyvek suit, gloves, boots with a little hood, and look like a spaceman driving it back to the impound lot.
And can you describe the impound lot?
Yeah, it's the chain link fence with 2 sets of gates, and it's chained and locked shut with a combination lock.
What type of ground is it?
Gravel, dirt.
I want to jump ahead a little bit. Actually, I'll do that in a minute. Do other officers bring you evidence that they have collected?
Yes, so in addition to being crime scene and evidence, I'm the property manager, so any evidence that gets collected for any case at the office comes through me.
And how does that procedure work?
So they collect it however it is that they normally collect things, depending on what it is. Like we went over with swabs and shell casings and clothing. They collect it, fill out the package, seal it up, and then turn it in, either directly to me or they put it in one of our evidence lockers
And where are those located?
in the patrol room.
And what happens when somebody leaves you a piece of evidence?
If they leave it in the locker, they put it in there, they put the lock on it, and I'm the only one that has a key. So I go by the next time I check evidence, generally every morning, or if I'm expecting something later that afternoon, and unlock it, take it out, take it back to my office, and do the normal processing and put my stickers on it and either send it to crime lab for testing or store it.
And what about if somebody's bringing you a piece of evidence directly when you're in the office?
So if they bring it directly to me, it's the exact same thing. They filled it out, sealed it, all that. And I'll process it, put my sticker on it, send it for testing or store it. Occasionally, if they don't have the correct packaging, like on the scene, I'll assist them with repackaging it into something that's more appropriate for storage.
And when items are done being processed at the crime lab, how do you get them back?
Schedule an appointment, just like the first time, and drive up there, and they'll sign them out to me and make sure that we've got them all. And they'll give me a list, this is what you're getting back. I'll confirm that's what I got back. They'll sign them over to me, and then they give me a receipt, and I take them back and sign them back into our system and store them at that point.
And how is your evidence stored?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Where do you keep it?
Okay, so we have an evidence room, kind of like a warehouse, and it's got lots of shelves in it and lots of boxes on the shelf, and we break the evidence down into different sections so that, you know, guns don't get stored with drugs, don't get stored with ammo, stuff like that. So it goes in the appropriate section under that case number, and it's organized by case number in order by year.
And so if somebody says, I need to see evidence item 50 from this case, how would you find that?
So in this case, if evidence item 50 is a DNA swab, it would be in general evidence. And so I would go to, because of the amount, a large case, it would be in a large box. I would go to the shelf in, for this case, 2022. I would find this case number, pull it off the shelf, and in that box, packaged individually, would be item 50. I remove that and sign it out to them for whatever they need it for, and then when they're done, they bring it back. I sign it back in and put it back in the box and back on the shelf.
All right, thank you. I just want to jump ahead a little bit in time to June of 2024. Did you respond to the Orange County Jail with Sergeant Goodwin in reference to this case?
I did.
And what was the purpose of that?
So we had gotten a notification from the North Carolina Crime Lab that while they were testing the sexual assault kits that were collected in this case from Lyric and Devin, that they needed hair standards from our suspect.
Yes.
So, Investigator Baldwin, did you go with Sergeant Goodwin to collect a hair standard from the defendant?
I did.
And why did you do that?
We received a notification from the crime lab that they needed it for comparison purposes.
And how did you collect a hair standard?
So in this case, we let the defendant pull it himself. It required, they wanted approximately 30 hairs, but they wanted the root intact. Pulling hair is never fun, but it's a lot easier if it's your hair versus me doing it. So we allowed him to pull us approximately 30 hairs from different locations on the head, the sides, the top, the back, places like that, until we got 30 that had a root attached.
And what'd you do with those?
Packaged them and sent them to the crime lab for the comparison.
Investigator Baldwin, all of the evidence items that we have discussed this afternoon, the shell casings, the rocks, the DNA swabs from the terrain, and were those items all sent to the state crime lab for further testing?
Yes.
And were there other items that were sent to the crime lab for further testing?
There were several other items sent.
And what were those?
We would have had items collected at the autopsy. I know that there were projectiles recovered from the bodies, They were sent for testing. They were sex assault kits collected from the bodies at autopsy. They were sent for testing. I can't recall anything else immediately.
At some point, was there a DNA standard for the defendant turned into evidence?
Oh, yes, there's a DNA standard for comparison purposes.
And was that also sent to the crime lab?
It was.
If I could have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That is all the questions I have for Investigator Baldwin. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Investigator Baldwin.
Good afternoon.
Looks like you're the star of the show this afternoon.
Apparently so.
You mentioned that you started in this position as, we'll say, the collector of evidence and maintaining of evidence for the Orange County Sheriff's Department around 2020. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so prior to that, taking that responsibility, what was your role at the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
So I was originally hired, and I spent about a year working in the jail as a detention officer. After that, I got my chance to go to BLET and become a patrol deputy. I did that for about 5 years, was an SRO, then an investigator, and then I took over this position.
And when you took over this position, you mentioned you had to take classes in education in order to be, I guess, in order to accomplish these goals and fulfill these responsibilities. What classes and certifications did you get in order to perform these duties?
So it was a list of classes that I gave earlier, the like tool marks and impression, basic crime scene, advanced crime scene photography, search and seizure, interview and interrogation, classes like that.
And did you take these in 2020 or just over the course of your career?
I've taken them over the course of my career.
And then do you have to recertify or kind of relearn things as they change over time? Is there something you have to update on a regular basis?
Not really something you have to update. You can take the same class more than once to get updates, or you can subscribe to like evidence journals, the Property and Evidence Association of North Carolina, places like that, to get updates.
Now, some jurisdictions, some law enforcement agencies, when there's a homicide or a big, we'll say a big case, they may call in someone from the SBI to actually do what you do. Is that right?
Sometimes smaller agencies that don't have enough resources will often call in the SBI.
But in this instance, this is kind of your role, and then if items need to be tested, you may in turn send it to a lab at the SBI. Is that right? After they're collected.
That's correct. The North Carolina Crime Lab is separate from the SBI now. But yes, so my job is to collect and process the scene. And then I do very minimal testing. If something needs to be fingerprinted, I may do that. But any of your very in-depth stuff, your DNA, things like that, I'm sending to the crime lab and let their experts do that.
And I apologize, I meant the crime lab, not the SBI.
Yeah, that's
In this case, did you yourself test any of the items that were collected?
No, I did not test any of the items in this case.
Okay. So on September 18th, 2022, you were called on the scene, and I think you mentioned the first officer, you talked to an officer to get an idea of what you're looking for or what happened. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I think you said you talked to Officer Suzanne, and you may have talked to other people, but that's who you mentioned today in your testimony.
It's more than likely Suzanne, if he was the first one on scene. It could have been his supervisor. I know sometimes supervisors will step in.
And then after you kind of get this, we'll say, summary of what you're going to walk into, you then in turn kind of walk the scene to figure out how you're going to approach this and what tools you need in order to identify and collect things. Is that right?
That's correct. I walk through and start identifying evidence and determine my equipment.
And then you mentioned you took pictures of the scene prior to and then maybe after placards were put down?
Yes, there were pictures taken during the processing.
Okay. And then you mentioned you did a Faro scan, and that was like almost like a 3D look of the scene. Is that right?
That's correct. It takes, I said 360 earlier, it's really 540, but of course above the camera doesn't really matter. It's just clouds in the sun. Okay. But yes, we did use that.
And you had an opportunity to go over some of these pictures with the jury that walk them through kind of what the area would look like from the street, which would be Buckhorn, making its way to the crime scene. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then you talked about how the number of placards, I think it was maybe 1 to 21, that was on that scene outside near Buckhorn. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, when you talked about the method of searching for items, particularly when you knew that there would be shell casings or the brass items that were on the ground, you said that you and maybe some other officers would kind of walk this gravel road together, kind of looking for these shiny objects. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one way to process it, yes.
And, you know, it was somewhat difficult because these brass items were around the same size as the rocks and might even have been a similar color. Is that fair to say?
Not necessarily a similar color. They appear more gold, brass gold, but same size or smaller, absolutely.
Now, did you use any apparatus like a magnet or a metal detector or anything to look and see that you actually identified everything that was in those areas?
So no, magnet would not work generally with shell casings, especially in the tall grass. Mostly we just did it with what we found with our eye.
And there were some items that were in the gravel, there were some items in the grass. Were there items that were found, we'll say, later on, after you did one walkthrough and two walkthroughs?
Yeah, so, yes, I believe I know what you're at. Yes, there was the following day, there was another shell casing located that was turned in. It's one that we missed that they happened to see when they went back out there.
After this shell casing that was found the next day that was missed, did you yourself or any other officers go back and see if there was anything else that had been missed that you did not see with the naked eye?
Are you asking if we did a walkthrough again?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we did a walkthrough again, trying to make sure we had not missed anything. We missed the first shell casing.
Okay. And did you use any other additional apparatus or item to help you verify that you hadn't missed anything, or was this just a search with the naked eye again?
It's just a search with the naked eye.
And you said that item was found by someone else. Does that mean it was turned into you, like at the evidence department after the fact?
Yes, it would have been submitted that way.
And do you recall, or did you ever observe this to see if it was a Winchester or an RP, or if it was the same color? Did you yourself ever kind of look at it yourself to verify if it was similar to what was found the day before on the 18th?
I would have looked at it, I'm sure, to determine if it was the same caliber.
Okay. And then would the initials on this item, since it was found by someone else, be different than the items that were found on the 18th because it was, I guess, packaged by someone else?
Originally, no. Remember earlier I testified if they have issues with the size of the bags, sometimes it has to be repackaged to be submitted to the crime lab. So in this case, when it was submitted, it had to be repackaged to go to the crime lab. The crime lab has specific requirements on the size of the packaging they will take. Based on the stickers that they put on now, they will no longer accept anything smaller than approximately 9 by 5. Most of the envelopes you've seen today.
You mentioned after you kind of walked the scene and started marking things that the medical examiner arrived. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And you said typically when that happens, you'll kind of stop what you're doing to assist the medical examiner in their needs, and then you may go back to doing your typical job. Is that?
that's correct. My job generally takes several hours. The medical examiner is not there nearly as long as I am. And sometimes stuff I need to do will hold them up. So I do what has to be done before they get there, then stop and help them, and then finish my job.
One of the things you mentioned on your testimony is that when you were helping the medical examiner kind of pull up the pants legs and the shirts and examine the injuries, that it was hard for you to determine the entry and exit wounds on the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And then, one moment. When you were talking about the position of the bodies that were on the scene, you mentioned that there was the markings of red stains that led up to where the bodies were. But then you mentioned that there were larger red stains in between the bodies. Do you recall that?
That's correct. They show up in the photographs.
And you said that you tested the smaller trails and even gave them evidence markers, but that you did not test the larger markers. Is there a reason why you didn't test these if you believe that they were suspected blood?
Yes, so a number of factors went into that decision. The rocks in the gravel driveway were small amounts, far from the body. So reason we tested those, collected those and tested those was to confirm that it was blood related to this case. Because the bodies had been in the location they were in the photographs for so long, my concern was body fluid or anything from the bodies running out because of the wounds, because of the time that had passed, because of the decay, would interfere with samples we took from those stains, and they may or may not give us an accurate result.
Well, when we're talking about testing for DNA, for example, the amount that was there would have been enough to test to see who, if any, that came from. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely could have been enough to tell you who it came from. Like I said, my concern was fluids leaking from the body contaminating it.
And so that was a decision that you made, or did you reach out to an investigator or sergeant and see if you should not take that just in case?
No, that's a decision that I made.
And there are items that you took for evidence or marked as evidence, like the vape pen and the cigarette butt that was close to the street. Even though they may not be relevant, you still mark them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And oftentimes when you're at crime scenes, you take and pull things just in case you might need them down the road. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
But in this instance, you decided that you didn't even think it was necessary to use it or take it or collect it or process it, even if it may have a possible issue down the road?
So I decided not to collect it because I did not want to influence the case incorrectly. I did not want the body fluids, because of their proximity to the body, in between the bodies, I did not want the body fluids leaking from the bodies into the stains to contaminate the sample and give us not a false positive, a wrong lead, if that, poor information.
Now, you had also mentioned that you were asked a question by Ms. Orr about the topic of gunshot residue, and when asked on direct, you said that you chose not to take gunshot residue. One reason was because of the cost. And I wanted to ask you, was there a cost-benefit analysis to not taking this test?
Objection, Your Honor. I don't think he said that on direct.
I don't recall that. I'll allow the witness to answer if that was his testimony, or if, so you may answer the question.
No, there's not a cost-benefit analysis when processing the scene, because the amount of time that had passed, because dew falls in the morning and then dries up, and that washes residue away. Gunshot residue, like I said, is only, the tester only recommended the first 4 hours. It had been well past that. There was no reasonable expectation to find gunshot residue on either of the victims because of the elements, because of the amount of time that had passed. So we decided not to expend those resources. We could have done it, but it would not, more than likely would not have yielded anything because of the factors that I described.
Investigator Ball, when we spoke earlier, you talked to me about the classes and things that you took in order to learn how to process scenes and collect evidence. In those classes and in that preparation, did you do anything specifically on gunshot residue?
Gunshot residue is part of basic crime scene. They cover it. Gunshot residue test kits are not specific to crime scene. Patrol can also do them, and occasionally they do. It's not something that you need special training for.
Now, it is true that, isn't it true that collecting gunshot residue from different surfaces require different processes? Or you take different steps to collect gunshot residue off of different surfaces. Isn't that correct?
No, I'm not sure I understand you.
All right, if you were collecting gunshot residue from a person's hands,
Yes.
that would be a different process than if you're collecting gunshot residue from someone's shirt. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if we're collecting it from somebody's hands, in the kit, there are jars and swabs, and they're all labeled, and it comes with a little bit of acid that you put on there to help collect it. And you swab like the palm, the back of the hand on both hands, and then there's like a little sticky pad thing that you tack on their hands to try to collect all the gunshot residue. If I was collecting gunshot residue or looking for gunshot residue on an item such as a shirt, I would take the entire item and send it to the crime lab for processing.
And just like there are different processes to take an item or gunshot residue off of different surfaces, gunshot residue lasts different amounts of time on different surfaces based on how porous it is or different factors with the elements. Is that fair to say?
That's a reasonable conclusion if you're talking about does it last longer on clothing versus skin? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, or any different surface, whether it's clothing, whether it's a table.
So clothing, that would be a lab question. I would assume it would last longer, but that would be a lab question.
Well, based on your answer that would be a lab question,
Yeah.
did you make a mention to or send these items or make a request to have any of these clothes tested? Clothes meaning the clothes that were on the male and the female that are on the scene, to have them tested for gunshot residue.
I did not.
And that decision was based on what?
Not to have them tested for gunshot residue?
Yes, sir.
It was felt at the time that it was not needed. There were projectiles removed from the body.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned when you were looking at the evidence on the scene, particularly the brass objects, well, I guess we'll call them shell casings right now, that they were all 9 millimeters. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And although some of them had different factory or brand names, I think one was an RP and the other was a Winchester, they were all the same caliber.
That's correct.
And I think you said you had some kind of, you took like a tool markings class, is that correct?
I did, yeah.
And in that class, you would have an idea of maybe tool marking would mean you could kind of tell that a certain projectile came from the same firearm?
No, that's a little bit of a misnomer. That's specifically for firearms and lab technicians. Tool markings I'm talking about are like pry marks. If somebody uses a screwdriver to pry a lock off of like your shed you keep your lawnmower in, or if something is struck with a hammer, the claw end of a hammer, how it digs in. Those tool marks and impressions are what my class was in.
All right, so in this instance, you could not look at these shell casings and tell that they came from one gun or 12 different guns?
That's correct. I cannot, with my training, tell whether they came from one gun or many guns. The only thing I can tell you is the make and the caliber.
You had made a mention when you were talking about kind of the location of the shell casings that typically a handgun will eject that shell casing 6 to 8 feet.
That's a good rule of thumb, depending on the environment, depending on the gun, the extractor, the ejector, the springs, all that, and what interferes with it. Like I mentioned, the tall grass might shorten that some. But a good rule of thumb is 6 to 8 feet.
But in your experience, because I'm assuming your experience with firearms, every firearm, you don't really know what a firearm's going to do until you fire it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, all of them are unique. All of them have different characteristics. Like I mentioned, the extractor, the ejector, the springs, how worn it is. All of that affects it.
And you didn't find any firearms on the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct. There were no firearms located.
Now, when you left the scene, prior to making it back to the station, you went to another location. Isn't that correct?
Are you talking about Burlington?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we did go to Burlington.
And you processed the scene over there too. Isn't that correct?
Objection, Your Honor, and may I be heard?
Outside the presence of the jury.
Yes, please.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be able to stretch your legs again. If you all please leave your notebooks in your chairs, everybody else remain seated. Please remember all my rules. We'll have you back here in just a minute. All right, all of our chairs have left the courtroom. Ms. Orr?
Your Honor, my objection is based on relevance and the potential to confuse or mislead the jury. It's going to require me to give the court a little bit of background about where Mr. Trapp is headed. So on the afternoon of September 18th, right around the same time the bodies were located, law enforcement got a tip that Miss Woods was potentially with an individual who was located at an apartment in Burlington. Officers went to that apartment. They interviewed 4 young men who were there. They brought them to the sheriff's office and interviewed them. All 4 young men were eliminated from having anything to do with this case. They were out of the area all weekend while this occurred. There was a firearm seized from one of them. It was test fired by the sheriff's office. That evidence was sent with the other ballistics evidence, and it was not a match to the shell casings at the scene. I think that going down this road has the potential to completely mislead the jury, especially considering that the defense's approach to this case is that Mr. Ross was there and he shot Devin. So they haven't made any suggestion that there was anybody else present at this scene. And I think, investigators follow leads in their cases, but this is a rabbit hole that I don't think we need to go down in front of the jury.
All right. Let me hear from you, Mr. Trapp.
Thank you, Judge. Just like any officer who's involved in an investigation, I'll always ask, well, did you do any further investigation related to this? And that is the case. According to the report from Mr. Baldwin, he said that before he even went back and turned in the evidence that he collected off of Buckhorn, he then went to Burlington and processed the scene there in relation to this case and collected a firearm in relation to this case and then had that firearm test fired, and it's going to say that it isn't a match. So I don't think it is a rabbit hole. I just want to make sure we're being thorough about the investigation and what did apply and what didn't apply. We just talked about how law enforcement said, well, they didn't test these blood patterns here. That was their prerogative, but they did decide to collect this firearm and test fire it. And because it is directly related to this case and this investigation, it is immediately after he left this crime scene. I think it is relevant. It's not a rabbit hole. It's what they...
So how is it relevant? How does it make a fact in this case more likely than not? That's the test of relevancy.
Okay, it's relevant because we're talking about this investigation. Right now, we're at almost at the bottom here, and we're trying to make our way up to the top on how they made it to decide that they wanted to charge Issiah Ross and how they want to decide that he may have been involved in this aspect or that aspect. This actually shows that they did do investigation, that they went beyond just looking at this individual, but multiple individuals, and that they excluded this individual by doing testing. And if there is evidence that is relevant to show one way or another, I think it is important, and it's something that this person participated in. And just because an individual does eliminate someone from whatever their idea is at that point, it's still relevant to how they got there. And that's all I'm trying to get at. It's not misleading at all, because we're going to come back to this thing. Well, yes, we test fired it, which is what we do with all of our evidence. There's going to be the evidence of the roof that we talked about earlier, and it's going to say that no one's DNA was connected to it eventually when the person from the crime lab comes. Does that mean that that's not relevant just because it came up with no person connected to it? I don't think so. That's just part of the process on how they got to these decisions.
There's two problems with that. The first problem is that you're bringing other individuals into this case that it appears that there's no evidence connecting them to this particular crime. And as you know, in order for your client to sort of propose that there are other people involved or there's some sort of alibi or that they were involved in it, you have to have more than mere speculation to even introduce evidence of that. There's some pretty solid case law that says you cannot introduce the names of anybody else or suggest anybody else was involved merely for the purpose of speculation.
Correct.
It has to be more than just speculation that somebody else may have been connected or involved in this crime. It sounds like from what you're representing to me and the state is representing that there's no evidence that these individuals who were spoken to in Burlington, that there's any connection to this, that there's any evidence that suggests they're connected to this, and that in fact all of the evidence suggests the absolute opposite, that these individuals were not involved in this crime, and that there's no evidence that connects them to that. And you are not seeking through this witness, it sounds like, to introduce any evidence that would connect them to this crime. Your proffer of evidence is, I want to ask questions that show these people are not connected to the crime.
No, what my goal was to just show that the steps of this investigation. So if they went down a street and went down 100 yards, I'm just saying that I know that there was at least 10 or 20 yards that haven't been discussed. Did you do anything else with this case? And the answer would be yes. I went and I collected evidence from Burlington, North Carolina, and after looking at this, it was determined that this firearm wasn't connected to the case. That's as far as we need to go. I just noticed that in my notes and in his report, there was something that wasn't discussed that he collected, and that was tested for this case that was sent to the crime lab. I'm not trying to implicate that anyone in Burlington committed the crime. That wasn't my intent.
All right. So I'm going to hold and find that under relevancy standard, I will find that the probative value of this evidence is not substantially or is substantially outweighed by its potential confusion to the jury in this particular case. There is the possibility that this evidence would be argued or attempt to be linked to individuals. There is no evidence by proffers on both sides that these individuals have any connection to this case, that there's any evidence that connects them to this case, that in fact all of the evidence connected with this investigation into four,
Your Honor.
these four individuals showed the absolute opposite. So it is not relevant in that sense. It cannot be admitted or even argued that these four individuals had any involvement in this case. That goes against all the case law regarding suggesting other people are involved or suggesting that the defendant is in fact not the person. As you know, the evidence has to show, one, that they are involved in the case, and number two, that it exculpates the defendant from any possible involvement or involvement at all. You proffered no evidence that fits either of those particular prongs, so it's not relevant there. That, though talking about it could raise that particular confusion, And that substantially outweighs any probative value, which from what I understand, Mr. Trapp is being argued, you want to show that the sheriff's department did a thorough and complete investigation, which is the only probative value you've offered it for. And so I don't know, I guess potentially it goes sort of character, I guess, or job performance, but I don't find that relevancy, I find that relevancy for that evidence is substantially outweighed for the possible confusion for the jury. Mr. Trapp, is there another reason you wanted to offer this that I should consider its probative value in this case?
Your Honor, I will just say to the court that if there are components of this case that were tested and used and compared, because it's my understanding that this gun was test fired and that those test fires were then compared to the shell casings that were found at the crime scene. And so if we get to that point, if the person from the crime lab says that we did determine that these shell casings were all the same and that they did not compare to the shell casings from this test firing, that would then relate back to what this officer did on that day. And that's all I'm bringing up. Like, it was part of the case. It was part of the investigation as an exclusionary measure.
But Mr. Trapp, your proffer of that testimony to me is that based on what you have read from the discovery, is that if, and I don't know that the state would call this person, if they were to call a firearms expert, that firearms expert, according to what you've told me, is going to say the test fire from the gun recovered in Burlington does not, in fact, match the shell casings that were recovered from the scene of this murder. Am I misunderstanding?
That is absolutely correct. But I think...
So the probative value of entering evidence that they collected a gun that did not match what was found at the scene of the murder, how is that probative on any material fact?
Well, I know that on the day that these bodies were found, there was information given to a family member, one of the victims, that they believed that she was at this or in this orange Camaro. And so law enforcement sent several individuals to go pick up people and search the house and do whatever else. And what was found was a firearm. And they excluded that firearm. And then they found other information that may have said, well, this person could have been there and that person could have been there. But I just know that this individual, the individual who's on the witness stand, left the crime scene and went and collected items for this investigation. And that's why I thought it was relevant, because he was doing it for this investigation. And just because evidence shows that it is involved or isn't involved doesn't mean that we can't talk about it in court. I thought the idea is because they did investigate, because they did look into it and find whether it was connected or not, would be important to talk about his involvement in this case. And that's my idea.
I didn't hear you, Mr. Trapp, but there's tons of evidence we do not admit all the time in cases that officers investigate or officers gather. Could be related to your defendant, could be related to everything. Any evidence that has to come in has to meet all of the requirements of evidence. The least is it has to be relevant. And the only relevancy you've offered to me so far is that you want to show that this officer did other things that by your own proffer did not lead to the defendant or another suspect. And as such, they are not.
Your Honor, I will strike it. This isn't.
No. I just want to make sure you got everything on the record.
Yes.
I am going to sustain the objection. I will note the defense's exception to my ruling.
Yes, Judge.
All right, let's go ahead and bring our folks back in. Yes, sir. All right, we've got everybody back with us. I will sustain the state's objection. All right, Mr. Trapp, the witness is with you.
Thank you, Judge. Investigator Baldwin, you mentioned that you had a chance to process this white GMC Terrain. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you talked about taking pictures on the exterior and then taking pictures on the interior.
That's correct.
And then afterwards, you talked about, I guess, looking for things with the naked eye, like maybe red stains or red streaks, and then going in more detail and spraying with luminol. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when you were doing your investigation on the outside of the car, do you recall where, if any, you saw any red streaks?
Yeah, I believe it's notated on the evidence packs. The red streak was on the right front wheel rim. It would be on the rim that was in the photo.
And so you used the word streak and not streak, so singular.
We're talking about the rim, or are we
Yes.
talking about everything?
The rim.
The rim, yeah, I believe it was one in the photo.
Okay. And after kind of looking at things, because obviously our eyes can't see everything, so that's why we use other items to make it more evident. When you were spraying the car with luminol, did you spray the outside of the car?
Yeah, we would have sprayed the outside of the car to check to see if we missed anything.
Okay. And do
I
you
believe that's correct.
and do you recall from your report if that assisted in you seeing more than you would have seen with the naked eye?
On the outside, no, I don't recall.
Okay.
I recall more of the inside.
Okay. And then you mentioned that when you sprayed on the inside, that you noticed something in the roof panel of the car, correct?
That's correct. The interior roof lining around the dome light.
Did you notice any other spots in the car that illuminated when you sprayed luminol inside the car?
Without looking at photographs, I don't recall that.
Okay. And after you kind of noticed that, what you described as a handprint with the luminol, that's what encouraged you to cut out that piece and then send that to the lab. Is that right?
So when I noticed when we discovered the handprint, then we tried to photograph it. It did not work out because it was not visible to the naked eye and the luminol had dimmed. Instead of trying to determine how to swab it, and swabbing cloth is difficult because it's woven and fibers can block things. In that case, we generally take the item. So that's why we cut it out.
And you mentioned that in addition to luminol illuminating with blood because of the iron that's in the blood, right? That it may also light up or glow if it reacts to other items. Is that right?
That's correct. The iron in the blood is not the only thing that it reacts to.
And so what you could have seen in the car, outside of the car, could have been a number of things, not just the presence of blood, and that's what the lab would determine. Is that right?
When the item's sent, yes, the lab would process it based on what we requested. They would process it for DNA. The luminol would light up, like I said when we went over it. Some kinds of moss cleaning products, things like that. It generally has moss, yes. Some kinds of moss, certain cleaning products, it does respond to other things. Generally, it's dimmer or more white and less blue, but it does respond to other things.
Nothing further this time, Judge.
All right, can you redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Investigator Baldwin, this may sound like a silly question, but are you familiar with firearms?
Yes.
And can you describe your familiarity with firearms?
So we carry firearms at the sheriff's office. I've been a certified deputy since 2011. In that time, I've also been on the SWAT team and the sniper team. So I'm very familiar with firearms, how they work, how they operate.
So the items that we previously discussed that were collected from the crime scene. Based on your experience, do you believe those items to be shell casings?
I do.
And based on your observation of those items, what characteristics could you tell about them?
So I can tell, looking at them, they appear to be brass casings. They're brass colored. Brass is a common material for that. And then they're made by RP. That's a manufacturer for most of them. And then they were made by Winchester. There are a couple that were made by a different manufacturer. They're all the same caliber, which means they can all be fired by the same gun or different guns, but they're all 9mm, so they're all the exact same size.
And is the caliber indicated anywhere on the casing?
It is. So when you look at a bullet, I'm sure we're familiar with the head stamp on the end of it around the primer. It generally, most of them, not all, but most of them have the maker and the caliber on it. And in this case, it either had RP, 9mm Luger, or Win, W-I-N, short for Winchester, 9mm.
I'm going to be jumping around just a little bit, so I apologize, but returning to the two areas of dark staining between the bodies of Devin and Lyric. You mentioned on cross-examination that there was a potential for contamination from other bodily fluids.
That's correct.
Is there any other reason why you didn't swab or collect any gravel or dirt from those areas?
Other than contamination, it just didn't seem appropriate.
How about the proximity to the bodies?
They're very close to the bodies with the wounds.
Going back to also the vape pen and the cigarette butt.
Yes.
And I think you also mentioned a chip clip.
Orange chip clip, that's correct.
Why did you mark those items?
At the time coming down the hill, there was a lot of speculation that they could be involved, so I marked them. Like I said, I process the scenes, I make that determination, but there were speculation from officers on scene they could be. So we took them, then determined they're trash. They're things people disposed of on the side of the road, and they didn't need to be processed for this case.
And about how far distance-wise, if you recall, were those items from that first set of shell casings that you marked with numbers 1, 2, and 3?
The shell casings were a distance up the access road. From the photos, you could see where the crime scene tape was and how close they were to the bodies. The vape pen and the cigarette butt were, if I recall correctly, immediately beside the road, like very close to the white line. And then the chip clip was off the access road a short distance up.
Mr. Trapp asked you a little bit about a shell casing that was located on the following day. Do you recall?
That's correct, yeah.
Were you actually present for the collection of that item?
For that one, no.
Do you recall who collected that item?
Should be Walter Vila, investigator Walter Vila.
And do you recall how, or if or how you received that item from investigator Vila?
So in a bag, it's an evidence bag that we issue. Before the crime lab changed their standards, it wasn't a problem. Then they said you have to have the 9x5 envelopes. So originally it was in a very small paper bag, like a 3x5, about an index card size, because it's a very small item. I had to repackage it because of their standards.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Investigator Baldwin, I'll approach with what I've marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 75 and ask you if you recognize this item.
Yeah, this is our item 38, it's one brass-colored 9mm shell casing.
And what's indicated on the packaging for that? Well, let me ask you first. Did you package this particular envelope?
So this one I sealed, yes.
And is that the same shell casing that you received from Investigator Bila?
Yeah, it would be the same shell casing in that case.
And has this item gone anywhere besides your office?
Yeah, so the sticker on the front indicates that it went to the crime lab, and the sticker on the back also indicates it went to the crime lab. A second time it was resubmitted. That's what the white sticker is. And then it went to their various techs where they opened it and tested it and then resealed it.
And is that in the same condition that you received it back from the lab?
The last time, yes, it is.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's all the redirect that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trapp, recross?
Nothing on recross.
All right, thank you. Officer, you may step down. Ladies and gentlemen, we're a little bit early this evening, but before we go ahead and start another witness, we're going to stop here this evening so I can get you out as close to 5 as I can. So I'm once again releasing you back out to your homes and families. So let me go over the rules so everybody remembers them. Number 1, you can all get together tonight. Just remember, you just can't talk about this case with each other. Number 2, you cannot talk to anybody else. Again, I know your family, your friends, everybody's going to know what's going on. And you just can tell them again, remember, you're on this jury for a murder case, and you'll be able to talk to them about it after the case is done. Number 3, do not allow anybody to talk to you or around you about this particular case, which leads to number 4, the avoidance of all encyclopedias this evening, all right? Remember, no independent investigation of any kind. Do not look up anything on the internet. Do not ask the AI any questions. Do not try to look up the names of the people involved or anything that you've heard about in court at all. With that, please remember there will be some media coverage about this case. So I'm asking you to avoid the internet, television, radio, anybody on Facebook or other things that wants to talk to you about it or share their opinion or their thoughts. You are now part of this jury. Remember, everything that you need to decide this case you'll hear while you're in the courtroom. And you need to decide this case solely based on what you hear inside the courtroom. So avoid all of that. Avoid anybody talking to you about it. Don't visit the scene of where this occurred. And lastly, please remember to keep your minds open. You have not heard all the evidence in the case. You have not heard the arguments of counsel. And you have not heard the law that you're going to need to apply to the facts in this particular case. So with that, I will again ask you to leave your notepads in your chairs. We'll take them and secure them this evening. Everybody else, please remain seated. We'll be back tomorrow at 9:30. All right, all of our jurors are outside the courtroom at this time. Anything else we need to address on behalf of the state?
Yeah, I should have mentioned this earlier, and my apologies for neglecting to, but I am comfortable releasing Mr. Kaiser and Mr. Wilson from their subpoenas. And they were in the courtroom earlier listening to some of the rest of the testimony since they had previously testified. Same with Deputy Suzanne. I would reserve the right to recall Investigator Baldwin if needed for chain of custody or another issue that may arise that I'm not aware of now.
Mr. Trapp, you have any objection to releasing everybody but Officer Baldwin?
No objection to that, Your Honor.
Just remember that Mr. Baldwin then needs to stay outside the courtroom while other testimony is being presented.
I have no doubt he will follow all of the rules exactly to the letter.
I have no doubt myself. All right, Mr. Trapp, is there anything else we need to address on behalf of the defense?
No, I was trying to think back if we had a bench
Oh,
conference that we
thank
did
you.
not recreate.
We did. We had a bench conference about collecting the hair for the standard. Mr. Trapp correctly approached to make sure there was no testimony about that sample being
Collected from the jail.
collected from the jail. And so instructed and agreed that the state just led and said you collected a sample from the defendant. So that was a excellent catch on that, Mr. Trapp. And additionally, that one of our bailiffs came up and just let me know Juror 6 had taken her notebook back with her. But as soon as he realized that, he walked back and got that from her.
Thank you, Judge.
So I don't think there was any problem with that. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Nothing from the
Thanks for
defense.
reminding, Mr. Trapp.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, we will be in recess then until tomorrow morning at 9:30. Doing okay, Kendall?